which you have available to you today as well. We'll talk more about him a little bit later on, but for now, would you welcome, please, Rich Speeney.
Thanks, Dave, and thanks for everyone for coming out today. My objective today is to basically tell you the true story of the last year and a half of my business life, the hole we got in, the hole we got out of, and how we got out of it, with the hopes that maybe at least a couple of years will leave today with an enthusiasm and an energy to try and implement some basic, very simple tactics that we all know exist and we all know how to do, but yet a lot of us don't do it. I'm going to start by introducing myself and my family, give you a quick explanation of what my company does and how we do it, and then primarily talk about how a visit to C12 a little over a year ago changed the way that I'll do business for forever, really. There's my family, married 23 years to my wife, Donna. I have 2 children, Richie and Maria. Richie's here today, and a very relaxed man because he's a high school graduate for 14 hours now. That's our facility, as Dave said, right up the road. We're a flexographic printer of 360-degree labels. We employ 65 people. We do our printing, and all our offices are here. And then we have a converting facility about 20 minutes away in Ben Salem, where we take the printed film and convert it into the finished product. We have 3 different product lines that we make. Stretch sleeve labels is our primary product. None of you have probably ever heard of a stretch sleeve label. It's a small niche market that we actually are the largest supplier of this product in the U.S. But it's basically a label that's printed on polyethylene film. This is the same type of film that your trash bags at home are made out of. And it comes on a roll within each label is separated through a perforation. Typically it's printed in a roll this wide, which we do in our Newtown facility. And then down in Ben Salem, we take on machinery that we've made, the film, we fold it in half, and then we slit it and we heat seal it at the same time and make it into a tube. So you pass that around if you want to you can damage it and play with it. So that's our primary product. That's about 80% of our business, and it's a niche business. It's sort of a flat market. You might see it on just about every bleach in any grocery store, Target, Walmart, anywhere across the country. If it's not Clorox, it's probably our label. Then we make a polypropylene label, which is 2 films that are married together in a lamination form that you would see on any container that has a flat wall. Typically, these Dasani labels are the label that we make. One of the big accounts that we had for a while was Nestle Waters, and we did that type of label for. And then our last product that we make is what's called a shrink sleeve, which is a growing part of the market. We have dozens and dozens of competitors in this market. We're just mist in the ocean in this market, but this is where a lot of our growth is coming from. And this is made from a PVC, polyvinyl chloride material that'll shrink around just about any shaped container. And a lot of the movement in the market is everybody wants to have different shapes and contours, and they want to have a label do the whole thing. And we're working on a really nice project right now with Clorox, and this is a project that we're doing for them. The other benefit of this product is a lot of times you'll see it'll go up over the cap so they can serve as a label and a tamper evident at the same time. So that's pretty much what we do. Our product goes through 3 processes. We start by printing, which is what we do in this facility. The equipment is very expensive, very capital intensive. You'll be surprised when you see the press, how big of a press that's required to print a water bottle label. Most of our competitors are much larger companies than we are. Then it goes down to our Ben Salem facility and goes through the converting, which I explained. And then we ship it to our customer, and then they apply it to the container. And I just have 3 quick videos that sort of show you the process.
We'll be able to get jobs through the press quicker. We can do backside printing now with the full 10 colors on the reverse side. Our core business is customers that have a lot of SKUs, 30, 40, 50, 60 jobs. And this press will allow us to get in and out of those jobs much quicker.
The technology is incredible compared to where printing presses were literally even 10 or 15 years ago. The press can run 1,300 feet a minute and literally print millions of labels per hour. And the registration, when you're putting one color on top of another color at 1,000 feet a minute, and it's within thousandths of an inch. Then we take the product down to our converting facility. We put the It goes on a machine, it goes up through, it gets heat sealed on the back part, which you really can't see. And it goes through that center section, and that's actually getting triggered with an eye and putting a perforation in between every label. And it gets a little static taken out, and it comes up, and it finishes on the end, and it goes to the customer basically like a roll of paper towels. They'll put that up on the machine, and it has a perforation in between every label. And they have a machine, here's a real slow machine, it just gives you an idea of how it works. But fingers basically come up and grab it and pull the label down over the container. So our specifications have to be very tight. We have to be within a 32nd of an inch on the size of our label. So we're slit sealing and converting that film at 500 feet a minute, and we have to hold it within a 32nd of an inch. We make that label a 32nd of an inch too tight, it won't go over those containers, and we'll be getting a phone call. That machine's probably running 30 or 40 containers a minute. They actually have machines that'll run those at 500 containers a minute, and it's just a blur. Puts a lot more pressure on us when the machine runs quicker. So that's pretty much my company in a nutshell. And as far as the industry is concerned, we're referred to as a flexographic printer and converter. Many times in our C12 group or small groups at home, we have discussions about the challenges as business owners and managers that we face of the long hours, the stress, travel demands. How do we balance that with trying to be the father and husbands that we need to be at home, and the difficulties that come with it. But I actually have a little bit of an advantage in my business because I'm probably the only guy in the room that loves to shop. Yep. So when my wife wants to go shopping, I'm there. And it's usually her dragging me out of the store rather than me dragging her out of the store. And it's because Walmart, Target, Home Depot, the grocery store, they're like Kitty City for me. They're just aisles of potential customers. So I got my son's friend to just give you a quick little tour of what a day at the grocery store might look like in the Speeney family.
Are we almost done? We've been here for 24 hours.
I haven't even got to the frozen foods yet. Ah, you gotta be joking.
So that concludes the entertainment portion of our presentation. I have a lot of things not to tell you today. I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't already know, nothing that won't be found on page 1 of Business 101, no magic solution, simple stuff, and no, Dave's not giving you your money back. You can't manage what you don't measure. You can't manage what you don't measure. It took me 20 years to figure this out. Could you all say it with me? You can't manage what you don't measure. Thank you. A baseball coach. Could a baseball coach put a lineup on the field if he didn't know what the batting averages were, how many home runs people hit, were they fast runners, were they slow runners? Of course not. Baseball teams have stats a mile long. Could a pilot fly a plane if he wasn't using his instruments? A college. Now would Cornell know that Frank's a great student for their organization if his high school hadn't tracked everything he'd done for the previous 4 years and graded him and monitored him? They wouldn't know. And there's 100 more examples. So if it's such a basic concept, why do most of us run our businesses by the seat of our pants? The answer, my answers anyway, were I'm way too busy to start a project like this. I wouldn't even know where to start. And my business is way too complex to do metrics. We don't make widgets. Everything's different. And my business is a perfect example. We have fast-running jobs. We have slow-running jobs. We have 10-color jobs. We have 1-color jobs. We have jobs with process ink colors, with tight registration. No, we do 8,000 different jobs, and there's not 2 jobs in our company that are the same. So how in the world could you possibly measure what operator A does versus operator B when they're producing completely different products? And that's the conversations that we had 20 years ago and 15 years ago and 10 years ago. And every time we decided to put metrics in place, we always decided it's way too big of a project, it's too hard, and it won't work for us, and we would shelve it and we would move on. This is an actual graph of the net income of my company over the last year and a half. Not fabricated numbers, this is the truth. In this period of time in here, basically this time last year, March, April, May, we were way out of compliance on all of our bank covenants. So at any time the bank could have called our loans and you saw the equipment. The equipment's millions of dollars and it's all financed. So we're very heavily levered. Relationship with our bank is very important. And we were out of compliance. Cash was bleeding. We were heading for a brick wall. I actually had to take myself off the payroll in May. I went 20 weeks without a paycheck. So I'm working 70 hours a week, no paycheck, and failing on my bank covenants, waiting for the bank to come shut us down. I visited C12 one day in April and actually wrote a letter to explain that day. And I was going to just read you that letter if you don't mind. It was around January of 2013. I engaged a corporate chaplain from Corporate Chaplains of America. His name is Cam Garvin, and Cam's actually here today. It's a great program. I was really excited about it. I highly recommend it if somebody wants to offer that to their employees. I'm sure Cam would be happy to tell you about it over lunch. But through Cam, I was introduced to Kevin Riley, who is the owner of Print Mail Systems around the corner. And Kevin's here with a bunch of his folks as well. Cam had mentioned that we had a lot in common, that we should get together sometime, which we did. Kevin told me of an organization called C12 and thought that it might be something that I should consider. He said it was a peer group of Christian men who met once a month. My first reaction was, that sounds like a good program, but I'm way too busy right now. I can't afford the time to be in another group. I'm already in a small accountability group that meets twice a week, and I'm in a couples group as well. Then he informed me that it was a full 8-hour day. Then I really said, there's no way I could do that. There's just no possible way I could justify, in the crisis that I'm in, being out of the office for a full day once a month. The irony is, by the end of today, you'll see how ironic that statement was. Kevin asked if I would come as a guest and see what I thought, so I did, and I attended a meeting as a guest in April. So, right in here, I attended as a guest. The day began about as I expected. Group of businessmen around a table with an agenda of things to discuss. They studied a few lessons, and it was quite interesting. They interacted with sincerity and conviction, and I was actually enjoying the day. But then something unbelievable happened. Right before lunch, they came to the accountability part of their agenda. A big chart came up on the wall, made by Frank, our next speaker, and the person at the end of the table started. On-time delivery, 96%, up 2% over target. And everybody around the table gave him a thumbs up and congratulated him, asked to explain why things were going well. Real quick, a few seconds, on to the next chart. New prospects generated, 3. The target was 10. The group immediately demanded an explanation. Why is the target 10? Why are we only achieving 3? Holding him accountable for the metrics that he's put in place, and he would give his best answer, and then we would try and give him some help if we could. They were reading their KPIs. I actually saw KPI on the agenda in the morning, and honestly, I had no idea what that meant. I thought it sounded like a Russian military group. But KPI actually stands for Key Performance Indicator, for those that don't know. Each person has about 5 or 6 that they report, and we go around the table very quickly. As the process began, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. This is exactly what my company needs. The exact same format, the exact same process. We are floundering, we are spiraling out of control. We lost money 3 months in a row. I knew I was going to have to come off the payroll. We were laying people off, and I did not see the next 3 months being any better if we did not make drastic changes. I was so convicted by this that my heart was actually racing. I wanted to get up out of my chair that minute and go home. I actually thought about getting up and leaving. But out of respect for Dave and Kevin, I decided to stay. But the minute I got home, I got on the internet, I searched video after video after video on KPIs, what they were, how to create them, how do they work. That led me into goals and SMART goals, what they are, how to create them, and how to make them work. I was up, I don't remember the exact time, but it was well after midnight before I finally turned the computer off and went to bed. I saved the 3 videos that I thought were short and concise and would explain to my company what I was trying to do. And I went in the very next day and called a manager's meeting, showed the videos, and I said, as of today, we are going to change the way we do business. I kind of got that look from everyone like, oh boy, here we go again, idea of the month. And their MO was usually, just ignore it long enough and Rich will get busy and it'll kind of fall by the wayside. No way, no way. I was angry. I was scared. I was determined. I had adrenaline flowing out my ears. I wish I could bottle it up and hand it out today. It was that big. This was going to be the beginning of a new way of thinking and a new way that we were going to do things. So it started on April 10th of last year. The way we got the process started, and again, this is coming from a guy who doesn't even know what the letters KPI mean, and it's coming in a time when a company is floundering and spiraling out of control. We held our meeting. I showed the YouTube videos. Nobody in the group knew what a KPI was either. I said, I'm going to meet with each person one-on-one, and in the meantime, I want you to create what you think are the metrics and the things that you want to track. We'll discuss them, and we'll get the process started. Absolute disaster. I met with every person one-on-one, kind of got that blank stare. Well, what are you like waste and productivity, things like that? What are you really looking for? So we were starting from the absolute basics. We discussed it. We just went through them one at a time, and just my theme for today is to just start simple. Just start with something. If you make widgets, how many widgets did you make today? Just make that one graph, that one chart. So I went through with each person. Then I established the KPIs that I thought were critical for the overall company, and we set a date to have our first meeting. Everybody was, oh, we're not ready, we don't know how to do this. I said, we're having a meeting, I don't care how bad it is, we're having a meeting. I went in the next day and started gutting the conference room. I refurbished the whole conference room. I put a 78-inch TV screen in, put a nice counter in. We order in lunch for the meetings, a nice hot lunch, kind of keep everybody interested. We actually even started now, we actually rate the quality of the lunches. Here's a picture of the conference room. That's the 78-inch screen, and then underneath we have the words, you can't manage what you don't measure, what SMART goals are, KPIs. Actually feel so strongly about it that I made all these removable vinyl stickers that you're all welcome to take for free if you want to put this in your office or in your conference room as a reminder to you and your folks. Put a nice coffee machine in, made the chairs nice and comfortable, and that's where we meet for sometimes our meeting this week, Bill, I think it was about 2:30 before we left, and we started at 9. So they're long, grinding days, but there's a lot of information that goes through those meetings. So on May 23rd, we had our first KPI meeting. Everybody showed up with their graphs, had them on the screen, and it was an absolute disaster. None of the graphs made any sense. People were presenting numbers that they didn't understand, and the people that were in the audience weren't grasping what they were saying. It was a disaster. But it was okay, because that's what I said. Let's just start slow. Let's get it started, and we'll fix it as we go. So we went through every graph one at a time. This doesn't make sense. You're not explaining what we really need to know here. Okay, we're going to change this. One at a time, we went through them all. The structure of the meetings. I wanted to start with an accountability mentality. I think accountability is incredibly important in our personal lives. I've heard one sermon, I've heard 100 on the importance of accountability partners and small accountability groups. I wanted to bring that same mentality to our team. I didn't want it to be where, they were putting a graph up, here's my production, and here's my labor, and they're talking directly to me. I wanted them to be talking to the whole group, just like we do at C12, and I want the whole group to hold them accountable. So when Bill's talking about the press department, the guy in IT or the guy in converting is questioning him. Why is your labor and printing going up? Why are the defects increasing out of your department? And have that accountability from the whole group. So that's what we started with. Accountability, accountability, accountability. Each person ended up with about 10 to 15 different slides of the basic metrics that apply to their department. Once you sort of get into it, it'll sort of start to come natural to you. And then we've gotten to the point where we actually have a little bit of competition now. I bought some PowerPoint software and passed it around to everybody where they can add animations and music and jokes, and it's a competition who can have the funniest slides now. And another thing that I do is I'll stop at Home Depot or TGI Fridays or places and I buy gift cards for just those tiny little successes. When a graph comes up that shows 2-3 months in a row of continuous improvement, or just little silly little things. To get everybody focused on the details, and we give out the cards, and it's more of a feel-good thing. It feels good to win the award. And like I said, the meetings take 4 to 5 hours, and they can quickly get off track. You can get into a graph, and then all of a sudden the 2 maintenance guys are are talking about projects and everybody else is standing around not really involved. So you really need to facilitate the meeting, sort of call timeout, but the benefit is that's important things that they're talking about, you need to document it and then reschedule a time for those particular people to discuss that going forward. And I really consider this to be the most important day of my month. I will reschedule anything I'm doing around this meeting. We just had our meeting 2 days ago, so I'm just going to blow through some slides from our group real quickly just to sort of give you an idea of what we do. And again, we're up to 100 slides we go through. Once you sort of get the system in place, it's very easy to add slides. I mean, what my controller does for me, she actually has the spreadsheet, and it's all these columns, and it takes her 15 minutes. She just plugs in all the data that I want, and it populates about 50 graphs. It takes 3 minutes. It used to take me 8 hours to prepare for this meeting. Now I can prepare for this meeting in 15 minutes. So I'll show you some of the things that we did. This is my most important metric. It's the 2 things that the bank, who lends us lots and lots of money, wants to know. It kind of drives home to me how important the metrics are. Here's a bank lending us millions of dollars. They never come to our place. All they want to know is make sure that your debt to your equity is below 4.5, and they have a fixed charge ratio calculation, which is basically just a calculation to see if we're generating a positive cash flow. So all they want to know is you're not taking on a lot of debt and you're generating a positive cash flow. We don't really ever need to see you or talk to you. But you can see, we weren't tracking this back then, but imagine if we were tracking it. We started at the beginning of the year, life's good, right? We're in. Well, if we were tracking this right here, an alarm would have gone off. We're heading in the wrong direction. And up here, we're out of compliance. We didn't really realize we were out of compliance until we were all the way out here. I mean, that's really danger zone all the way up there. So this is a perfect example of we would have gotten to the bottom of our problems way before we did if we were tracking this stuff ahead of time. And here's a classic graph. I'm sure every one of you all have labor. And you can see when we started tracking, every single month it just keeps going down and down and down. I mean, eventually it's going to level off. But once it levels off, then it's just a quick glance to make sure things aren't getting out of control. But from 18 to 11, it's a significant drop-off. In our business, we have millions of dollars in payroll. It's a significant difference. Then we break the labor in half into our printing department, which is in the Newtown facility, and our converting labor, which is down in the Ben Salem. So you can see Bill has a nice trend going there. He's not running a lot of overtime. He has his own metrics out on the floor, which I'm going to talk about as well. They're watching it every day, and he's going in the right direction. Now converting, it's going slightly in the opposite direction. But as long as you know why, it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. I'm not surprised when I saw that graph, because we've been having some quality issues, and we're not sure if it's film related or if it's machine related. So Joe and I had decided, let's just slow the machines down a little bit, and we also have a step where we can put it through an inspection process to give it a double check. I said, for the time being, let's bring in the labor and run the things through the inspection, so it's not a surprise that the labor is going up. And here's a graph of our credits issued. This is how we know that our credits are going in the wrong direction, because we have this graph. This is not a good graph. This is some graphs you want to go down, some you want to go up. This is one you want to go down. So we have the information and we have to deal with it. Material cost, you all have material cost, I'm sure, or most of you do, is a big driving force in our business. When we were losing money month after month, we were up here in this 50% range, and look at the improvement since we've been doing the KPIs. We were at 48.8, now we're at 40.9. That's a lot of money. That's the difference between a company that's about to get shut down to the bank to a company that's performing in the top 10% of its industry. That's how significant the difference is. And it's just a collection of, everybody keeps asking, something had to happen. Coca-Cola gave you $10 million worth of business, or you found a way to buy your materials for half price. That's not true at all. We have not raised 1 penny of sales, and our raw materials have actually gone up. All oil driven, oil's going up. Our cost of materials are going up, and we are still seeing these type of improvements. And it's just because of our 100 graphs, 95 of them are going in the right direction. We're picking up a point here, a point here, a point there, and all those things added together equal a lot. Here's a graph that our scheduling manager keeps for us, and this is what our waste basically. And this goes all the way back to 2007. A lot of these graphs we started, and then when we realize the ones that we like and they're valuable, then we start to go back so we can get a history. We roughly throw 1 million pounds of film in the trash can every year. That's 25 tractor trailer loads. Imagine 25 tractor trailer loads out here with trash bag material. It's a lot of product, a lot of dollars. Since we've been tracking, since August, we're on pace. We're only going to throw about 700,000 away. So that's 300,000 pounds of film savings. Some graphs like this are just I'll look at this graph for 2 seconds. And as long as I don't see a spike, something shooting out, I know our receivables and payables are in line, and I just move right to the next one. Typical graph, you all have sales. We break our sales down into different colors for our product lines. So real quick, I can see this particular month here. That's a low margin product line, so I know that month's not going to be good. So again, a lot of these things are just to validate what's going on. And then when I'm done my section, then we pass the baton around to each person around the table. So the press department is run by Bill Harlan, who's also here and a C12 member as well. And then Bill will go through his slides. He'll list all his KPIs that he has and his goals for the year and any initiatives that he's working on. And again, it's pretty quick. If guys get too windy, these meetings could go on for 2 days. So you have to sort of keep it streamlined, and he'll start going through his graphs. Now, the biggest benefit that I've found is this process is more for Bill than it is for the rest of us in the group. He has to get this prepared just like we do for C12. And I admit sometimes I do mine at 11 o'clock the night before, but I still do it. And it forces you to do it, and it forces you to look at it. And a lot of times when he's explaining this, something will trigger in his head. Oh, you know what? That doesn't really tell the story I want to tell. Next month I'm going to change that graph and I'm going to include this, this, and this. But he'll go through very quickly. That's my total production for the month. This is my press department, is that we like to monitor our sales per hour. So this is the total sales per hour that he gets off of the machine. The orange bars are the dollars per hour for every hour that the machine should be running. So it takes breaks out of the equation, cleanups, shutdowns, maintenance out. The red bar is just a bar that says divides the total sales by 24 hours. So you can sort of see the difference between the two bars would really be your downtime. So the idea is to get those as close together as possible. And then you can also see we started doing the KPIs right in here. Look at what the production was before and look at it as now. And a lot of these graphs end up tying back to each other because you saw how the labor was coming down and you saw how the cost. We were doing this running lots and lots of overtime. Now we're producing 50% more with no overtime. And then he'll go into his uptime, and then he has an Excel spreadsheet that just shows the reasons for the downtime. And again, a lot of times, maintenance will say, oh, geez, you had all that time for blade changes. I could sharpen the blades for you or clean the blades for you ahead of time, and I could solve that problem for you. So a lot of improvement happens within the meetings. Then he'll show his direct labor as a percentage of sales, and his goal for the year is 6%. So you can see the last 5 months, it's clearly under that. Backlog's critical for us. Our customers, we can't produce inventory. Every single job for us is custom. So when customers decide they need labels is when they go in the warehouse and they realize there's none there. And then they call us. Al can relate. So we have a target to try and keep our backlog to a week and a half, which is very difficult in our business. And you can see these are months. But since we've been tracking this, we've been keeping that backlog below 2.5 weeks for about 7 or 8 months now. And then he'll pass the baton over to Trish, who's our purchasing, scheduling, and IT. Same thing. She'll go through her KPIs, her initiatives, her do-tos, and then she'll go through her list. This is a perfect example. We just started this graph 2 months ago. Prior to 2 months ago, we didn't have this. We're out in the warehouse one day, and we realized we were throwing a lot of film away, and it was getting thrown away because it was old. So, all right, time out. We need a graph that shows all of our old film. So she went in, she created a metric that she's going to start tracking all film that's over 180 days. So she did that the first month, $113,000 worth of film that's over 180 days. That stuff's in danger. Much longer, it's going to go bad, and it's going to go in the trash can. So since she had her eye on it, and she does the scheduling, she tries to get that film in the system. Look at the gain in 1 month. She went from 113 down to 95, and I bet you next month it'll be down here. So again, every single thing that we put in a chart, it gets better. When you start measuring it, it gets better because people pay attention to it. She was tracking, we make a lot of mistakes, unfortunately. So last year we printed $306,000 worth of film that went in the trash can because of errors by the operators. Since we've been keeping track of it and measuring, we're on pace so far in 2014 to be right around 100. So $200,000 gain. Inventory turns. Trying to get our inventory down as low as possible. So this is a new chart also that Trish put in for herself. She says, I'm going to try and get our inventory turns to 10.5. She measured it in the beginning. And this particular one, she's going in the wrong direction. But she knows where it is. It's on her mind. And I guarantee you, knowing Trish, she will eventually get this graph to turn around. But if this graph's not up in front of the whole group, she's not paying attention to inventory turns. She's too busy. Her raw material, same thing. We want to try and, these are all sort of basic metrics. Then she'll pass it over to our sales guy, and he creates a nice little slide of all the prospects that we're working on. So everybody in the company sort of, when they see these names or they see these products coming through, they know to keep an extra eye on it. And it's sort of good for morale, gives everybody a feel for the new projects that we're working on, the timing. We're actually printing Jesus on candles right now for a candle company. So it gets sort of everybody motivated. Then sort of once we have the system all in place, that we've started to come up with some non-traditional graphs that you probably wouldn't think of. Anybody ever open the refrigerator to that? It's usually milk, right? And the oldest one usually works its way to the back, and then eventually works its way back up to the front, and then Dad picks it up and pours it on the cereal in the morning, and then he's sick all day. Well, the same thing happens in our plant. We have big rolls of film that are thousands of dollars. So the night shift press operator, he gets his job sheet. I need stock code 1000. He goes out in the warehouse, pulls a nice juicy roll of stock code 1000 down, goes out, prints his job. Every job you're going to end with a partial roll. So he ends his job with a roll this big, puts it in the warehouse. 3 days later on night shift, stock code 1000. He goes out into the warehouse, pulls a nice juicy roll of stock code 1000, runs his job, ends with a butt roll. Next thing you know, we have a whole warehouse full of butt rolls. And these butt rolls could be $300 to $500 a piece. And they sit there and they rot away and they end up going in a trash can. They take up cash, they take up space in the warehouse, and they waste money. So same thing. Bill and I were out in the warehouse. We're like, what are all these butt rolls? We've got to start managing our butt rolls. We need a graph for butt rolls. He goes out and counts them, creates a graph. We got 250 butt rolls. Look at that. In 3 months, cut that number in half. Put a procedure in place, told the operators, you got to go get the butt. It's all simple stuff. You would say, why weren't you doing this anyway? We were all doing what we should do. We wouldn't be having this meeting today. So we put an emphasis on it, and it cuts in half. That could be a $50,000 reduction in inventory and space as well. So it's just a classic example of every single solitary thing we measure gets better. And I know that will happen in your organization. I know it will. And it doesn't matter whether you're a manufacturer or I think it goes for every business. Met with one of our church leaders a couple weeks ago, and he said, do you think you could do this in a church? Absolutely. Anytime you have human beings and a goal or a task, you are going to do it better if you manage it, measure it, and track it, in my opinion. Another very unusual example. Who would think to track their natural gas usage? It's your gas bill comes in, you pay it, and you go on to your day. Well, we have a big unit that goes up on our roof that oxidizes the fumes that come off our alcohol-based ink, and it runs at 1,000 and some degrees every day, sucks up a lot of natural gas. Well, nobody's paying attention to it, and all of a sudden, look what our gas bill was, $8,500 a month on average, and then boom, 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 something's wrong. Well, nobody's looking at it, nobody knows it's wrong. So in January, after a $17,000 bill comes in, the unit breaks down and it's broke. Whole plant's down for 2 days. We got to get into the unit. It's $20,000 to get the unit fixed. If we were tracking this right around here, our engineer would have said, whoa, something's wrong. If our gas usage is up, then it's got to be the oxidizer. We may have been able to get into that oxidizer and fix it prior to spending the $20,000 to break it and not have to have all these months. So I view that as that's $51,000 worth of extra natural gas and two down days of press time because we weren't paying attention. So now it takes 2 seconds to implement it. Now we watch natural gas every month. And when this comes up on our slide and this levels out, it's a slide that we'll look at for 2 seconds. Natural gas is normal. Next slide. Next slide. Again, just trying to keep the meetings interesting for people and having them to want to come. We just try and make them funny and fun and a little competition amongst everybody. So here's 3 little examples. We have an equity firm that owns 18% of our company, and in one of our quarterly meetings, they're putting a little pressure on me to try and get a little bit more terms from our suppliers. We're paying everybody in 30 days, and they're saying that industry standard is 60, and I should be able to get the bill stretched to 60. So I said to Trish, okay, add it to the grid, list all our suppliers, all our terms, and what our goals are, and each month, as we get somebody to agree, we'll show it. And this was her slide that she did for the group. Another example is we, cash flow in our business, because we're so heavily levered, is ultra critical. And we were trying to learn the difference between cash and profit and the importance of cash. You've all heard the saying, cash is king. So our slide came through as, telling them that cash is king. And then one last one was, we just wanted to be sure that everybody was comfortable and relaxed and realized that they could ask questions. So we all remember. So again, just like I said, they're long meetings, and as owners or managers, this is important to you. You're living it and breathing it. For them, this is new. This is more work. So you just have to try and keep the interest level high. Then the next step was, after we sort of got the managers in our monthly meetings sort of have this whole process under control. Our meetings now, if you could sit in our meetings, are very smooth. The graphs are good. They're very informative. Our goal is you should show that slide to a stranger who doesn't know what they're looking at, and in 10 seconds they should understand what you're trying to communicate. And that's the way we are. And we can blow through 100 slides quickly. And the second step to the whole process, which may actually even be the harder step, is to take this same philosophy down to the floor. We've always known that we should have quotas and expectations for our operators. We don't know who our good operators are, and they don't get rewarded for it. We don't know who the bad ones are, they don't get penalized for it. So we did the same thing. We created standards, uptime measurements, waste numbers down on the floor, and we have big screen TVs that you'll see if you come over that have all the operators listed, kind of like, I don't know if any of you played sports, but in the locker room you'd had all the guys listed and their batting averages and their stats and things. And it's just unbelievable, the difference. As soon as you put those numbers up, everybody realizes that you're watching, and the productivity just goes through the roof. And again, it just comes down to, if it's not being measured, it's not being managed. And the good employees, they love it. Wednesday of next week, we're handing out $75,000 in profit sharing checks. We haven't done that since 2009. So they're starting to correlate what we're doing to the success of the company. We just repaved the parking lot, $40,000, put a new roof on, $40,000. Things that needed to be done in past years, but because we were underperforming, we always put those projects on the side. Our philosophy was the same thing. I sat down with Bill and said, how do you even begin? Every single job is different. And I know you guys are probably saying the same thing. We can't measure our stuff. It's too confusing. You just have to start. Put it on the back of a napkin. Put one chart, one graph on the wall. Whatever it is. Bill, you guys put adhesive on paper, and I know you know how many square yards you produce in a day. Start there. One graph. We produce 10,000 square yards of film today, 20,000 tomorrow. And you know what will happen? Somebody will walk by and say, and then you'll have 5,000 one day. Oh, we had a terrible day. And somebody will say, no, we didn't have a terrible day. The machine was down for the whole day. And you'll say, all right, now I got to start factoring in downtime. And you'll create another graph. And then you'll go to your splitters, and you'll set up what their productivity is. And then they'll tell you. They'll say, hey, it's not fair. He runs the stuff that has 1,000 feet on a roll. I'm only running the stuff that has 500 feet on a roll. He can get his stuff done twice as fast as I can. Okay, let's have 1,000 roll operators and 500 feet of roll operators. It will come eventually. We know. Trust me, our presses are very, very difficult. And one of the things that we've done, it's a little painful. Bill's a high-level plant manager, and he spends about an hour and a half of his day every morning. He comes in, takes it's all handwritten papers of all the jobs that we produced the night before, and he manually loads all that into an Excel spreadsheet, because it's just difficult. We can't hire, a clerk to come in and do it because, jobs end in the middle of a shift. He needs to know when it transitioned from one shift to the other shift, and there's anomalies. So if a customer comes in to watch the press job run, it's never going to run as fast. So you don't want to penalize the operator for that, so he has to factor in press checks. And there's a dozen other checks, so he has to sort of massage the numbers as he's plugging them in, and it's not something you could just pay a kid or somebody to do. But we've decided that it's worth the hour and a half of his day. Plus, it's a good visual for him. He's seeing this every day. He's seeing every operator. Hey, why does the same guy seem to have the most trash every single day? And it helps him communicate better with his people. And again, to try and bring a little bit of fun and enthusiasm into it, we create contests. We have attendance is very important to us, especially now that we have one big press. Our entire company runs on that one press. So the guy oversleeps or gets stuck behind a train, it literally shuts the whole company down. So we have what's called attendance survival. We have it up on our big screen. We have every employee's name starts on January 1st, and then every day that somebody calls out late or doesn't come in, their name gets scratched off the survival pool. And anybody who's left standing, we're going to do it twice a year, so literally next week, anybody who's left standing gets a $500 bonus. So basically, just come to work on time every time for 6 months, you get $500. You guys take this very, very serious. In the past, when we weren't watching and measuring things, it was like a country club. People came and went whenever they felt like it. They came early, they stayed late, smoke breaks, they smoked for a half hour. There was just no accountability, no measurement to anything. Now, we have, you know what the winter was like, all the snow we had this winter. Our attendance was way better through all that snow than it had been in years past when it's 90 and sunny every day. We had, the one story that sticks out is our plate mounter. It was one of the really, really bad snow days. Some of your guys' companies were probably shut down. We don't shut down. He was at work an hour early. He was supposed to be there at 7. He was there at 6 o'clock. So there's no doubt in my mind, he clearly set his alarm the night before for 2 hours early, knowing that it was going to snow. He wanted to make sure that he wasn't going to be late because he didn't want to lose that $500. And that's such a win-win for the company. I wish every single person in the company got that. It would. And again, this gets displayed on the screens. People like to see their name up on the screen. They look at it every day, and they want to see who the high performers are. Nobody wants to be on the bottom of the list. This is what you'll see when you come over, but this is our press shop. We have 2 screens. It looks sophisticated. It's really not. They're just 2 cheap TV screens you could buy at Best Buy with a little cheap hard drive behind it that we tap into via like PC Anywhere. And it's in a PowerPoint thing, so those slides will rotate. That's our survival pool slide, and then that's one of our, looks like average setup time. So that's all our press operators, and then every week, we do this weekly, we don't do this monthly. So every week they see their numbers from the week before. We purposely did that weekly because we wanted them to realize, they remember the jobs they run during the week, and then the numbers come out on Monday morning, and it starts to click. Oh yeah, I knew I was going to have a bad number because I remember I had a bad day, or vice versa. I think monthly might be a little too spread out for on the floor. And then Bill, underneath the screens, because that's where people congregate, that's where he puts all the jobs that were printed wrong, just as a reminder, so we can correct it next time. This is the screen that's in the conference room. So every morning we have our production meetings in there. There's a couple slides that roll that just real quickly show us what our backlog is, what our production versus our booked orders are. Just things that need to be on our mind while we're doing the scheduling. And that's up in our art department showing their productivity, and that's down in our converting facility. That's their efficiency numbers, which is really the most important slide for the operators, but it shows all of them and then everything they do. And again, probably looks overwhelming and thinking it's very, very simple. It's all manually entered. It's just a simple Excel spreadsheet, a simple PowerPoint. Just start slow. Start with taping a printout up on the wall. Handwrite on it if you have to. And I guarantee you, once you start to do it, you'll want to create more graphs, more information. You'll want to make it prettier on screens. And, we're still in process. We're a little over a year into this. Eventually, I would like to get this more streamlined where it can be done through the computer. But the important thing is to gather the information and use it to help the business before you worry about being so fancy and sophisticated and pretty. There are the results. May was probably the best month we've ever had in our company's history. And their actual numbers. Now, I know I'm a little bit of a numbers geek and a charts geek, and this really kind of comes natural to me, and I like it. I was actually reading through some old stuff this weekend, and I found 1982, so this must have been before computers and Microsoft Excel, that I made my own little spreadsheet that I was on the bowling team, I guess, and I knocked down 6,907 pins that year. And I bowled 37 games for the varsity, 5 for the junior varsity, and it's written here, 87% varsity percentage. So, but there are the results. So I'm not telling you a story that I think if you did this could happen. I'm telling you a real live story. We were down, desperate, and burning, and now we are. Dave, when I first joined C12, he submitted all of our numbers, our company information, to see where you stand amongst your peers. Well, I read that report and threw it right in the trash can because it basically said F, 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 F across the board, bottom 10%, bottom 10%. We were a train wreck. Now, we're with the elite companies. Our competitors, we have a lot of information on our competitors, and we are currently outperforming most of our competitors. So I guess, just in summary, I hope that maybe one person today kind of leaves here the same way I left that C12 meeting, couldn't wait to get home, couldn't wait to get on the internet, search what a KPI was, and just get something started. Another thing that I wanted to mention, that I talked to a business owner the other day, and he goes, yeah, but I already know all this. I live and breathe my numbers. I can tell you what my waste is, what my labor percentage is right off the top of my head. So I don't need to do this. But you know what you're missing? You know that, but nobody on the floor knows that. We're entrepreneurs. We're wired differently. The people on the floor are not entrepreneurs. They're not wired the same way we are. And that was the one best piece of feedback that I got from my guys was, thank you for telling us all this. We never knew this. We never knew the company was doing bad. We never knew our waste was high. Thanks for telling us. And now that we know, we want to do better. Most people want to succeed. They want to do good. The problem is they just weren't educated. They didn't know. And I think that was the biggest thing for me. And I think that might be the biggest thing holding a lot of you guys back, is you think you're doing it, but you're really not. And the people on the floor have no idea. You're up all night long stressing over things, and they really have no idea. They need to be educated. And this is a way to just bring everything to light and have everybody in charge. And the morale at our company is just going through the roof. Everybody, when they present those graphs, it's encouraging when you see a chart going in the right direction. And it's going to be more encouraging when a $75,000 check gets cut next week. And that's an easy check to cut, an easy check to cut. I wish we're check cutting it every month. So my advice, stop making the excuses that I made. I knew that I needed to do this 20 years ago. I've had a dozen people ask me, why didn't you do this 20 years ago? Because I didn't. Same reason that a lot of you are not doing it. It's overwhelming, it's overbearing. You got too much to do. You probably have 30 emails already accumulating while you're sitting here. Just encourage you, take time out. Try and get a group of people together. You're not going to do it by yourself. You got to get somebody who knows Excel, somebody who's good with computers. None of the managers even knew how to make a graph. I'm telling you, we were really bad. But somebody in the office said, oh, I know how to do graphs. I'll teach people. And it's not that hard. And once they started doing it, they all started learning. They went online, and people were helping each other. And it's just a spiral upward win-win scenario. So go back and pick one graph, one metric. If you make widgets, put a sign up tomorrow that says, we made 20 widgets last night. And remember, you can't manage what you don't measure. Thanks.
A lot to take in? Is that a lot to take in? It's gone pretty far. I mean, they've got somewhere over 100 metrics that they measure. If you look only at that, it's overwhelming, isn't it? I can't start there. But that's not where Rich started. Pretty incredible. 14 months to have that kind of turnaround. It's possibilities.